Can we get back to what we were supposed to be talking about in the first place and how you create your fantasy world? Do you start off with a map? Little Lego models? I don't know, I have no idea.
I draw maps. It's so easy to get lost in your world. Like if you've got characters moving from one town to another town, it's remarkably easy to have like A west of B, and then in a chapter later it's suddenly south, and there are a lot of readers who will notice.
Thrones, yes.
They will notice. And I mean, you can go so in depth with this, like you work out, like if your characters travel by horse, you need to know exactly how far they can travel per day to be able to say how many days it would take them to travel between those two places,
never
things
ever
like
think
that.
of.
Yeah.
Let's go the opposite way. David?
What's the question again?
How do you create the world? Do you start off with a map? Silly, potty?
I think it depends on what you're trying to do, but I think the rule is that you should work out what your rule is and write it down so that you can refer to it and work things out. I mean, it's not something you necessarily put in the book and put across to the readers, but if you've done all the working out, it comes across in the novel and makes it more believable. There's a sort of suspension of disbelief people require. And if you've done your homework, then the reader starts to trust you and you can take them on a journey at a certain pace with the horses going a certain distance.
But your world's been more ethereal, I suppose, rather than physical.
With my thing, it was timelines. Like the timeline had to be right, and I've got pages and pages of notes where, because mine goes back to Egyptian times, and I had to research the whole Egyptian era and make sure in the time of Tutankhamun and the time of Ra and Amun and all that sort of thing, that everything fit. So when I was telling the story, there was no gap, there was nothing wrong. So it was historically a timeline, and then it was in the second novel, it was day by day because Emily is abducted and she's kept in a tomb underground in a crypt. And the days were ticking past and something happened every single day. And then I suddenly found that I'd got through to like 3/4 of the book, and I thought, oh, hang on, about 3 weeks has gone past. Well, she'd be dead now if she was in the tomb that whole. So that's not going to work. I've got to do this almost like hour by hour. So I had to really make sure, because I thought somebody's going to pick up on this if I get the timing wrong. So it was more a timeline than anything else. But then extensive notes about the characters and their background. I had to get it historically watertight as much as possible. So yeah, that was my world.
So mapping not only physically but from a time perspective
and making it historically accurate. Because if you bring the past in, it's got to be as accurate as you can get. So I was watching all new information that had come out about Tutankhamun and the opening of the tomb and the latest thing. And then, because my characters have lived for like 3,000 years, so they can talk about any era of history with authority because they've lived through it. So I had to make sure I did the proper research so everything was accurate. So these little odd comments they could make, say about Oliver Cromwell, that actually it was something that sat with history as well. So that to me, I didn't intend that when I started it, but suddenly you think, actually this has got to be accurate, it's got to be watertight, and people will notice if it's not. So yeah, that was nice.
For example, you couldn't have a steampunk character before they started using coal.
They did use steam engines back in the ancient days. It's just that they never took off for some reason, not literally.
I can't remember the name of the Egyptian that did it.
For the ancient Greeks, they did. They even had very basic moving engines on cartwheels. But I say for some reason, it just
the Christians threw the technology away. I thought it was pretty pagan. Yes.
It's very easy to understand why ancient Greece and ancient Rome didn't take off. You come to somebody, Caesar, I've invented this machine, it does the work of 15 men. And they go, well, I can buy 15 men down the market. What do I need this machine for?
Tamworth Market.
Well, any market.
Oh.
And also apparently steam was used to perform miracles. There was a cathedral somewhere where apparently if you stoked the boiler beforehand, it would cause the doors to open. So of course the priest timed it, they just walk up to the doors and go, and the doors would open, and everyone thinks, wow, it's the power of God. So, you know, steam has been used in the past for quite various purposes. But unfortunately, I'm a lazy git and I just cheat. So what I've done with these two books, they're written by someone looking back at events 100 years ago, so if there's any errors in there, I can say, well, he got it wrong. So that's my get out
unreliable
course.
narrator.
Exactly, yes. Which means I don't have to go off my notes and do any research.
This is an argument about research. I have this argument with Linda Stratman, who writes very good crime fiction set in Victorian times. And she comes to me and says, you can do lots of fantastic research. You can go to the library, you can look up a newspaper on a specific day and know what the weather is like. You know, you can set it on a particular Tuesday in March or whatever, and it will be slightly drizzly or whatever. And I'm saying to her, look, my characters are about to fight a baddie who's going to raise zombies using lightning. There's going to be a thunderstorm.
Not a slight drizzle.
Not a slight
Doesn't have the same impact, does it?
thunderstorm.
Yeah.
So there are two approaches really. There's the heavy research, look things up. I know exactly when there was a full moon in 1900 in Egypt, for example, because I've looked it up. I've looked, asked people, experts, to find these things out. Or you can just make it up as you go along. But I think if you make it up as you go along, you must write your research after the event, is it like? You must, if you invent a device in a science fiction book, you must write down what it can do, what it can't do, so that you're consistent and don't cheat.
And it's actually, with technology, it's actually exactly the same with magic. You've got to have your rules in your magic system, because if your main character has abilities that they can literally do anything they want with no consequences whatsoever, then they've won on page 1 and your story is over. So it's like, just like with technology and magic, you've got to have those restrictions and consequences for using these things, so that you can increase the tension, and so that you've got another try-fail cycle for your character.
Another?
Try-fail cycle.
Oh.
Where they try to
Oh, I see. Sorry, yes.
achieve their goal, but they
I thought
they
it was 3
fail.
times something.
I
as
thought
well.
so, yeah.
Well, I'm afraid that the money's run out for all the easy questions that you've primed me with, so we're going to throw it open to the audience if you don't mind. Tom?
Yeah, sure.
Well, there you go. Anybody like to know anything?
I'd like to know what Pat and David are working on now, because we didn't get to
Oh, I never
them
got that far.
I
I got thirsty.
Pat first, or David.
I'm just finishing the 3rd book in my Thinkosphere series, Thinkosphere being like the Twitter sphere. So it's the one where you transmit all your thoughts. And it's a perfect example, in fact, of what we're talking about in having to write stuff down, because it's a 3rd book. So obviously I know how the system works. And I gave it to my editor and he goes, excuse me, what's this here? And I go, oh, damn, I have to write down how it works, go back and rewrite it to get it to work. It was autonomous cabs. He said, in this taxi, is there a driver or not? Okay. It was just going to be like window dressing, but I had to work out how taxis work in the future. Write it down, then rewrite the book to make that work. And I think it is really where creativity comes from. If you give yourself limitations, you fight against them, and that's where you come up with ideas. Whereas if you're allowed to do anything, you kind of, it's a blank page, I don't know what to do. Pat, what do you do?
So I'm moving away from fantasy into ghost stories. So this last year I had a collection of short ghost stories, a bit like Tales of the Unexpected, so they've got a twist in the tale. So that was published. This year I'm doing a novel, which is a ghost story, but it's like a romance and a relationship novel. So I'm back to adult literature, and very creepy, contemporary sort of story. So I'm on about chapter 3 at the moment.
Do you mean adults in for grown-ups or adults in erotica?
No, unlike you, I haven't written erotica.
Because apparently ghost erotica is quite popular with some people.
Well, the succubus and the incubus, I suppose, yes, yeah. No, I kind of toyed with all that, but I think when you get to a certain age...
Would you like to rephrase that? You said you toyed with all that, and I thought maybe you want to rephrase.
No.
Okay, fair enough.
No, I don't think so. No, in my youth. But I think as you get older, the Holy Rhotic thing becomes a bit sad. And I find the whole erotic thing now. It's like the current, I'm in my current book, the couple have just met, and obviously it's going to be very creepy and there's all sorts of things going on, but at the moment it's the perfect relationship and there's lots of sex and they're all into each other. I just can't write sex scenes anymore. It's just not age appropriate to me, because it's just...
Should we get a very interesting insight into your personal life?
Please, can we have another question?
How much studio do you want?
What is your favourite part of your world building for each of you? What's your favourite thing to do when you're creating a world?
Oh, my absolute favourite that I'm totally obsessed with is creating like religion and rites and all sort of like the mythology and the belief, like blind faith. That whole idea of blind faith just fascinates me, and like I really love visiting like cathedrals and churches, and just looking at these amazing buildings that were built by faith. And yeah, so creating religions and creating all like the altar items and the words that they say and all these ceremonies, that is something that I am like totally obsessed with. Just love it.
You did say buildings built by faith.
Well, yes.
Bricklaying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. But to, yes, obviously they weren't. It wasn't purity that built them, but the whole idea of like somebody wanting to build this huge monument because of their faith, although
it's mythology
it wasn't
that you
always.
like
Yeah.
in the world building side.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not sure what my favourite part is. I do like doing the research. I read an awful lot of books on the Bentley boys and the Bentley era for this. That's quite good fun. You find an interesting fact or an interesting scene, you put it in your book, and then you refine it and you edit it and you refine it again, and eventually the whole thing's disappeared, and you realise that you read a pile of books that high and you've reduced it to just like 1 page worth of sort of scenes, so that can be a bit frustrating. I do like the editing process. About 50-50. 50% I like it because you think, well, I'm really knocking this into shape, and 50% you're thinking, how could you write a sentence that bad? You completely leave it in it. So the whole thing's quite good fun. It keeps me off street corners. So not in that sense. Only when I need the rent. Yes. So yeah, I think I quite like the whole process. I like the writing process as well. I like being creative. But then again, sometimes I do just sit there banging my head off the laptop because I can't think of a single thing to put in. So, yeah.
I like the idea of past sins coming up again in like current lives, or the sins of the fathers being revisited, and what's the implication of things being done badly or wrong in the past, and how does that feed through to the future, and the fact it's very cyclical. What happened in ancient times is still happening now, and the more that your characters are talking about things that happened in the past, you think actually that could be talking about now. And I like the idea of the fall from grace and damnation, and how Lucifer was once a very bright angel in the sky, and then he overstepped his mark and he fell. So you've got like Dante's Inferno, or you've got Milton, Paradise Lost. So in my book, my characters are actually English students. So we look at things like Paradise Lost, and they're actually studying this. But then the actual adventure that's happening is involving a fallen angel from ancient times. And that fallen angel is still very relevant today. So you've still got satanic forces today. So, but that satanic force was never pure evil in the beginning. He was just a lost soul who got it wrong, who fell from grace, and then became very, very evil. So how does that evil come back into the current times? So I'm just fascinated by this whole thing of the angelic forces, and the fact that there was always very good forces. And I still believe in the world there is this balance of good and bad, and whether it's a fantasy world or otherwise, or it's historical or contemporary, there's still this balance of good and evil and the interplay, and you're always going to get, you know, the baddies who are intrinsically evil and everything they do is bad, and they seem to be winning. But as I say, to me it's a morality tale, and in the end you've got to have good actually coming to the fore. But in the process, a lot of good guys might get killed, because that is reality. So it's just really the relevance of the past with the future. And when I say the past, I'm going back to very ancient times, like, you know, the biblical times, the beginning of the world, and the angelic forces and fall of Lucifer and everything. So really, angelic demons, I don't know.
I think you've asked the question to 4 writers who don't do it. You ask what's the most interesting part of world building. I think you're expecting a question like, well, I draw the map first, and I spend a lot of time on that.
It's more just what is your favourite part, what do you enjoy more than any of all the world building?
I think the most enjoyable part for me is when a story comes to life and starts to write itself, and the characters have enough about them that they start to make their own decisions, and then off it goes, and then it's really a joy just to sit there reading it off the screen.
So you were saying the characters build the world?
Yes, I would say so.
Thank you for your in-depth answer there, sir. Very good of you. Yes.
Well, it's true.
Well, I
I
didn't
do some research, by all means, to set it somewhere. So the last Do Club was set on the Suez Canal, so I read a lot about the Suez Canal. So that's what's the best part of world building. Well, that's not world building, that's reading about the world as it was, it's that research. But it starts to come to life at a certain point where the unconscious part of your brain is clearly doing the work, and I touch type, so I'm not aware of what my fingers are doing. So you can literally sit there and see the words appearing on the screen and be just entertained by it. I wrote Crossing the Bridge, and the plot required the main character to not escape from a cell. But he started to be very, very good at escaping from a cell. A lot of, he rose to the occasion. And I, as a writer, was going, well, really, you can't escape, but oh, you have done. You know, and that's the best part, when the world, you're not building the world, it's just come to life, it's just often doing its own thing. Brilliant.
And it's surprising how characters suddenly do and say things, and you think, whoa, I didn't know that was going to happen. So they are whole live beings in their own right. I've written a short story about a character that somebody imagines comes to life, and this has happened in real life. You can create energy forces, and they can literally embody and become real life forces. It's called a tulpa. And if you go in, like through the Himalayas, that kind of area, it's a folklore there. And there was a lady that created her own energy being, and he became real. And he's really nasty. And this is actually fact. This is a true story. And they call it a tulpa in this Himalayas. What's the country that would be?
Tibet.
Tibetan legends. To try and destroy a tulpa, once you've created it, is really, really difficult. It requires months and months of meditation, because you've created an external thought form, and it can take, it's not like a living being, but it is real. It can be quite malevolent. They take on their own attributes. And to try and destroy it takes a huge amount of meditation and just a massive thought process. And that, I found that was fascinating. That is true, that's catalogued, that has happened. So you've got to be very careful what you think of, because some of these characters can become so real that they are very real to you. They exist. And I find I get a lot of inspiration from dreams. If I can't think how something's going to end, or I've got a bit of a conundrum with something's not quite working, I just think, just leave it, let it bubble away in the subconscious. And I dream about it, and inevitably, about 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, I'll wake up, and it's all slotted into place, it's worked. So I'll just shoot out of bed and get a pen and paper and write it down. I do that regularly, 2 or 3 times a week. Things come to me in my dreams. That's just my way of, subconscious working, I suppose.
Get a pen that lights up. So you just grab it, click, and you write.
No, I have to run into the office.
Oh, to run the office.
So yeah, that's my thing.
One of the advantages of writing a series is you come back to these characters. I'm looking forward to writing the next Dear and Do Club because it's been a while, and I wonder what they're up to. Because with characters like that, I've spent a lot of time with them. I've spent more time with them than I have with some people who are friends. Slightly disturbing, but true.
So David, when you wrote the first book, did you have the other books in mind or not?
No, not as a planned thing. Not the J.K. Rowling, I've got a 7-book plan. I just thought it was an idea that had legs.
Yeah, you had your characters in there.
Yeah, it went in a very different direction from what I imagined. And I very stupidly at the end of the first book put the Do Club will return in and put the next title in. So I now have to plan the next book before I finish the one I'm working on. I don't know what it is. You get ideas. You think that's an interesting idea, but won't go anywhere. Then you get an idea and think, well, no, he's quite good, and it leads to another idea, and then you think, oh, this got legs to work. Yeah.
Question over there.
Oh.
Is there a fantasy or science fiction world that really impresses you, and why?
There's an alternate universe where I am God.
Is that a question about what's your favourite book or a world that really impresses you?
World, not so forget the characters, or forget that book may have earned somebody a load of money and they can have their private island. What is it? Is there a world that you wish maybe you'd have created? There's something about it incredible.
One thing that I wish I had created, Patrick Rothfuss's King Killer Chronicles. The magic system in that is friggin' amazing. It's so scientific that you can totally believe in it. Like, it's based on like physics and chemistry and totally on the way that our world works. You don't even need to suspend your disbelief to believe in his magic system, because it's so believable. I can imagine that it does totally exist in our world. Just the way he's made it just makes so much sense, and he explains it really well. And god damn, I wish I'd come up with that idea.
I'd go for June. I wish I'd written that. Can I change your question ever so slightly? And talk about Star Wars, because I would have loved to have created Star Wars, and yet a lot of people who are making Star Wars now don't understand it. And that's something I struggle to comprehend.
I feel there's a rant here.
There is a rant, yes.
Yeah, I was about to say, don't understand what about it. I'm trying to work out how to do this without ranting. Doesn't matter, rant.
The recent Star Wars films have not been very successful, neither were the prequels. It's a series that I do love, and yet I'm hard pushed to come up with a good film that they've made it. And if you look at some of the fan films that they've made, they sort of get the universe better than the makers of the films do. And the makers of the recent films have gone, oh, we're awfully sorry, we didn't quite get it right with this film, but we'll get it right with the next one. That's strange. Almost like the writers have never read a how to write book. I changed your question. Answered very badly my own question.
You didn't rant though.
Didn't rant
No,
as a result, I think.
To be fair, to back up David, there has been a lot of rules that have changed in the Star Wars world as Disney have been making the newer ones.
Yeah. Thank you. That is to bring it back to something else. You write down your rules.
Yeah.
So in the first Star Wars film, it was a big galaxy, it took the Millennium Falcon time to get to places. You had to do your calculations before you do a hyperspace jump, because no one wants to fly through a sun. That's your established rules. In the most recent film, Han Solo in the Millennium Falcon doesn't do any calculations at all, and hyperspace jumps through a door. It's inside a hangar in another spaceship. So you can hyperspace jump through a door. And then later on in the same film, they have another ship that goes to light speed through another ship and destroys it. Now, you've got to have a rule here. You know, either you can hyperspace jump and go through doors, or you can hyperspace jump and crash into other spaceships.
You do realise you've just got most people wanting to watch that and find out the error, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Including me. But there you go.
People will believe anything if you sell it to them in the suspension of disbelief. The best example is Looney Tunes, Warner Brothers cartoons. Wile E. Coyote is chasing Roadrunner. He's walking along a cliff edge, and he walks off the cliff, and he's fine, not a problem at all. And he'll do two or three steps, and then he'll go and fall. Gravity works not relativistically; it's a quantum level thing. It only works when you observe it, and then you fall. And people believe that. You watch that, you don't have a single problem with it at all. But if Wile E. Coyote comes to a cliff edge and steps straight off and falls, you've broken the rule you've created. So this is Star Wars' problem. It created a rule and then it broke it. So you no longer believe anything that happens. So Wile E. Coyote has to be able to walk on the air if that's what that universe's rules are.
So what we want is a Wile E. Coyote Star Wars mashup.
Yes, probably. But I think that's the problem they've had, which is why our advice is you write it down. Write down what your rules are. When I was writing iPhone, what does a phone do? Well, this one is an artificially intelligent one, but what does the phone do? So I went onto Wikipedia, found the iPhone and went, right, okay, my phone will do this and nothing else. So it knows exactly where it is because it's got GPS, but it can't move because it doesn't have legs, it can't fly, it can't teleport. Make your rules, and then you put it in a situation. You don't have to be clever to get it out of that situation.
Yeah, every single one of my series, I have a notebook dedicated to the world building for that particular series, so that I can always refer back to it, which I learned the hard way, that you should do that. When I was writing my first series and I got to book 3 and I was actually having to reread book 1 and 2 constantly for like, oh, what was that guy's wife's dog's name? So, yeah, absolutely. Every series you write, make sure, or every book you write, make sure you have a world building Bible, however you want to keep it. Yeah, 100%. You've got to have those rules, and you can't change them from book 1 to book 7. So if you've written a crap rule for book 1, you're stuck with it. You've stuck with it. You've got to work with it.
I happen to know that they create video worlds. Yes.
We work in video games.
Video games, but
Yeah.
It's still a video world.
Yeah.
Right? It's a. What stumbling blocks do you come across?
Well, we have Bibles.
Yeah.
Like we guess you guys do.
Right.
So we try not to contradict ourselves, but I'm sure we do occasionally.
You don't hyperspace through doors or anything like that. No, right.
But yeah, we try and keep it all written down so we don't make those kind of mistakes.
Any
Because if
particular?
you guys have made mistakes that you know about that maybe your readers haven't spotted yet, or that you've been caught out by editors who've gone, well, if this is true, then
I've been caught up by an editor recently, the one I'm working on, and I fixed it.
yeah.
Yeah. And it was my fault. You know, I should have been a bit more rigorous with my Bible. I should have read my Bible. That's what I should have done. I have written it down. I didn't read it.
I think we're just about out of time. You take one more, if anybody's got one.
So just to say that there's 2 people that haven't answered the last question that was asked earlier about the favourite worlds.
Yes.
Just
That's
go back to it as well.
Don't have to.
Okay.
No, we have.
I haven't.
No, the 2 in the middle.
Yeah. yeah.
Oh, I
We
see.
do, yeah.
The quiet ones in the middle.
Yeah, we're just listening. Well, living with a daughter who's been Harry Potter obsessed, we have watched every single Harry Potter film again and again and again. We've read every book again and again and again. We've been to Harry Potter World in event towards London many times. We've been to Universal Studios, to Harry Potter World. We have been completely obsessed with all the Harry Potter stuff. And I just think they're brilliant books. I take them for what they are. I know lots of people I know slag them off. I've got friends that work in the movies in Hollywood or whatever and think they're a waste of time. I don't think they are what they are. They're really good books. They're exciting, they're fun. She's created this whole extra world. What I don't like is I love the Mysterious Beasts first film that came out, and I thought that was really good fun. The second one that came out, there's so much backstory. It's so complicated, so complex. And we're still trying to work it all out. And I sat there thinking, this is too complicated. And I think this is the danger with creating worlds sometimes. They get so complicated.
She's written a novel as a film script, hasn't she?
Yeah, the second one, for me, it didn't work. And I said to my daughter, did you understand that? And she went, yeah. And I went, oh.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't. So maybe it's an age thing, that kids understand a lot more complex ideas and can take things on a lot more. And maybe as adults, we try and make it has to work properly, it has to add up. And kids just take it as it is. I don't know. Maybe we ought to, simplify the way we look at things a bit more.
Can I disagree with you?
Yeah,
And use J.K. Rowling as an example, or disagree with what you just said. I also think not just writing a Bible down, you can test your rules. You can get people to munchkin them. If you're a role-playing person, you'll know that. You test the rule to see how far you can push it. So if you invent a teleport device, what are the limitations of it? And you've got to really test it. Because teleport is incredibly... Star Trek's transporters are immensely powerful. Because not only can you transport somebody down to go and shoot somebody, but you can transport a bomb down, or you can just transport half of the person you want to kill to somewhere else. You've got to think those things through. The magic system in J.K. Rowling, Quidditch doesn't work. There are people who play Quidditch with broomsticks between their legs, and there's leagues and such like. Brilliant. But they've had to change the scoring system, because the scoring system clearly doesn't work in J.K. Rowling books.
Well, I don't know about that, because that's just passed me by.
I always thought that, because the scoring they're doing, sorry, I don't know any of the technical terms, but through the rings, means nothing once someone catches the golden snitch. So why have it? Why don't you just have two seekers trying to get the golden snitch? I always thought that as well.
Yeah. I mean, she wanted Harry Potter to score the winning goal and didn't really understand sport, I suspect. So she skewed the scoring system so that you definitely won the game, no question about it. And the game doesn't work.
But can you get
it's
a
a
bit
shame
too pedantic
because
about it?
Yes, you can, because yes, you can get too pedantic about it. But the emotional thing she did worked really well. That the writing of that is fantastic. You just wish somebody had gone, look, can you just tweak this scoring system and then it'll be fine.
Because it doesn't have to be 50 points, does it?
No.
It could be like 2 points or 5 points.
The critical one before the whistle goes, yeah. Jon, you haven't done it.
What was the question? Is it which world am I jealous of?
Yes.
Yeah.
And why?
It's difficult, that one. Have you read The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen by Alan Moore?
Oh.
You can tell he's very well read, and he's read a heck of a lot of English literature. So I'm quite jealous of what he's done with that world. Neil Gaiman with the Sandman series. That's another one I'm quite jealous of. But then something like Conan Doyle and the Sherlock Holmes stories. The first 2 or 3 collections and The Hound of Baskervilles, very, very good indeed. After that, tailed off very badly. So I'm always aware that there's a few issues here and there with any world building, but in terms of being well read, probably Alan Moore. In terms of wishing I had the money, it would be Harry Potter. In terms of wishing I could annoy the fan base, it would be Star Wars. Just depends what mood I'm in.
Jon, talking about the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, of course means the graphic novel and not the film.
Oh yeah, not the film, yes, which was fairly terrible, yes. In fact, it was so bad it stopped Sean Connery being an actor.
Did it really?
Yeah, that's really retired after that, yeah.
I never thought he was beforehand, but there we go. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Can we show our appreciation? You all are with books, I assume?
I think there's someone over there who hasn't bought yet. We should all point at him.
Quick last question before we go.
Come on.
How much work have you lost? Wiped, if you can use it.
Not me.
Any of you?
God.
Thankfully, that's never happened to me.
So sorry, if your computer's wiped.
Yeah.
No, it hasn't happened to me because I keep all my material on a data stick, I back it up to my hard disk, I back that regularly up to 2 other hard disks that are portable, and I back it up automatically to the cloud.
Yeah, the wonder of the cloud.
I do remember editing once when and I got this feeling of deja vu, and I thought, no, I haven't. And I'd already edited from wherever it was, because I went back about 2 weeks later and forgotten all about it. So yeah, it happens a lot.
In punk publishing, Andy and I were writing this, and we came to the section on you must back up, please, for goodness sake, back up, don't lose your entire novel, back up. And we decided to work out how many different backups of punk publishing we had, and it was 36.
I once lost everything because I
Really?
pressed delete, and I don't know how it happened. And I thought, was this taking a long time to delete? And I watched delete. I thought, there's a lot of files being deleted, and I watched it for about 15 minutes, thinking, I wonder why it's taking so long to delete. And then I realised everything I'd ever written had been deleted, and I lost a novel. And then I thought, well, maybe the universe is trying to tell me something that's not very good.
The universe was telling you to look in the recycle bin.
No, that was deleted as well. Everything was
Pixar
gone.
story. Pixar was doing one of the Toy Story films, 3 or 4, something like that. And they had different servers about the place. And someone typed in the Unix command to delete everything, and it started to delete everything on every single computer. And they realised what's happening, and various bits of Woody and Buzz Lightyear started to disappear. And literally that. And the bloke eventually rang up the person who was in charge of the server and said, pull the plug out. They went, no,